Thank you so much for staying with us. Now, the CBN launched the NAIRA4DOLLAR scheme on March 8, 2021 to incentivize the inflow of remittances from the diaspora into the country in response to the inadequate forex supply and ongoing pressure on the country's exchange rate. Since its introduction in March 2021, the Naira rate has fallen by a whopping 127 Naira. This reflects a 26% depreciation to the value of the Naira on the parallel market since the scheme was implemented. Originally set to end in May 2021, this NAIRA4DOLLAR initiative was extended indefinitely. Now, while reports show that some stability in the exchange rate was recorded in the early days of the NAIRA4DOLLAR initiative, the difference between the official rate and the parallel rate has simply exploded since the third quarter of September. For further analysis on this, Gospel Obele is a research and development economist. He joins us now virtually. Thank you so much for joining us, Gospel.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for having me.
Good morning to you. Now, the CBN launched the NAIRA4DOLLAR scheme in March 2021.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Yes. Talking about the scheme that was launched by the CBN in March 2021 to incentivize the inflow of remittances from the diaspora into the country. And of course, this was in response to the inadequate forex supply and continued pressure on the country's exchange rate. But did you see this as a way to resolve the forex crisis in the country?
Thank you. And once again, thank you for having me. I don't thought
Gospel. Okay, we'll of course get back with Gospel. The conversation, of course, is on the incentivization initiative by the CBN, talking about the inflow of forex into the country, and this is one of the issues that the federal or the CBN was trying to resolve by introducing this scheme. Thank you for joining us again, Gospel.
Yeah, thank you. So it was a policy introduced by the central bank, but wasn't a sustainable or intelligent policy in the sense. And that's because, number one, the policy does not resolve the causal issues, around forex scarcity. Number two, the policy also did not seek to properly organize the markets, that's the markets for foreign diaspora remittances. Informally, foreign diaspora contributes at least almost about $27 billion every year. And its data also showed that when you look at the Nigerian foreign investment or capital importation data, you see that foreign diaspora investments or remittances, contribute a critical chunk, to the Nigerian economy, but it hasn't been organized yet as a form of revenue pool or as a strategic pipeline to stabilizing the Naira, when you compare to the dollar and all that. So the central bank hasn't looked enough in that direction to begin to make the most critical structural, technological, and enabling changes that can help for balancing out of the Naira to dollar. Rather, the policies have been a bit interim, a bit reactionary as well. So take, for instance, the central bank does not even have enough data to show, when money moves into the Nigerian economy as foreign diaspora remittances. You don't have enough data to show. How then can you tell, when Naira and dollar is being exchanged and you're trying to reward the parties for it as well? So it's not so much of a stable policy in itself. However, foreign diaspora remittances have been happening, and more has been happening within that context, and the central bank can even envisage. So we need to do more around structuring that market to even know exactly how much is coming in, where is it coming from, where the money is going to, what's the pipeline through which there's no organized value chain through which foreign diaspora remittances moves to Nigeria. For some people, their relatives sends it directly to their personal account. Some use money transfer. Some use Western Union transfer. Some others use digital apps or advanced bank applications in advanced countries that can literally help you switch exchange rates, and you can transfer directly to the recipient in other countries. So there are different channels through which foreign diaspora remittances, penetrates through the economy. So the central bank needs to do a lot more of the hard work of understanding, organizing before you can even reward. All right. Sorry, understanding, organizing, and capturing value before you can even reward.
All
So you
right.
don't introduce a policy that jumps to the end of the value chain, and at the end of the day, you may not end up trying to solve the problem
So
there.
many loopholes you just
So
pointed out, gospel, and of
yeah.
course they are obvious to see. One would expect that the CBN would have factored in all of these issues before launching that scheme. But do you think that perhaps there were just some form of knee-jerk reactions towards this or dealing with this Forex issue by the CBN?
So I wouldn't call them just knee-jerk reactions. I'll just say a series of very reactionary driven policies. Can you hear me, please?
Yes, I can. Go ahead.
Yeah. So if you look at it consistently from the banning of items or restricting items that have access to FX, from banning of licenses to bureau de change, from the crypto policy to all the series of policies the central bank has introduced the last 3 to 4 years, it has been a lot of reactionary driven. They are not coherent, they are not consistent, and they don't enable even the NAIRA. All right, where is the NAIRA today? All right, so a lot of those policies seem as though they were, I don't want to use what emotionally driven policies, and highly reactionary, not well thought about, not based on research. The design was poor, the launching was also poor. You're launching a policy and your body language seems as though you want to monopolize. The central bank shouldn't be in the game of monopolizing. Rather, the central bank is an apex bank that should enable the collaboration of all financial institutions. All right. You can also see that the central bank had to ban license from fintechs. In as much as quite understandably, some fintechs has been used as money laundering platforms. We've also seen that the central bank has not been able to manage the body language around SMEs, fintechs, and the like. So there are a lot of conversations around the consistency and the motives of this policy. It's not been healthy enough to stir growth.
Yes, but Gospel, you'd recall that the project or the scheme was successful for the first few months. That's between March and May. And then later on, we saw the drop, which was what even happened with the NAIRA policy also. What do you think was responsible for this success? Why wasn't it sustained over time?
It was, at the time, it was a window to cash out. It was a window to cash. So Nigerians are also opportunists. We latch heavily on windows. So at the time, it was good windows to cash out at the time. So, and again, like I mentioned at the time, we were not on this platform. When the policy was introduced, there was no strategic thinking around it for sustainability. So we saw initial response, but that initial response was based on people saw the opportunity to quickly earn on that exchange table. But over time, as you moved on, we saw that policy weakened because probably a lot more people tried to gain that whatever, and there were clashes back and forth. But then the purpose for why it was designed was not fully achieved or actualized.
But let's also look at the fact that some analysts believe that since Nigeria is the significant portion of its quarter of 2021, the impact reflected on the activities of the Forex market, and the business demand for Forex also improved. But do you think that this NAIRA4DOLLAR scheme has, over time, helped with the, recouping by the, the foreign exchange market? Do you think it has probably helped in boosting the Forex market?
I don't think it has helped in boosting the Forex market for several reasons. Number one, the structuring of our policy lacks a clear understanding of the demand side problem as well as the supply side problem. So we are grossly underestimating the demand for foreign exchange in Nigeria. First. Secondly, the reason why you have a demand supply challenge in the first place is because you have structural issues threatening the supply side. Supply sides are broken on structural grounds. And what do I mean? You're not exporting enough. You're not exporting non-oil enough. You're not competitive in the global environment. Things that you need to do to earn the foreign exchange, you're not doing them, and you're not doing them at scale. All right, enough for you to be enough for you to be a top earner in foreign exchange and all of that. Your capital portfolio is still unhealthy. All right, people are doing more. So your capital importation is still unhealthy. People are doing more of FPOs, capital portfolios, than FDIs. That's not a healthy balance, right? So all of these things tells you that the inflow of foreign exchange to the country is low, all right? And because you have that structural issues unattended to, all right, it presents what we call a structural leakage as well, meaning that no matter the solution you create, if it's not structural facing, all right, the leakage will remain and any other policies will continue to be ineffective in that context. So there is need to ensure that policies are much more structurally designed as well to ensure that it is addressing the root causal reason. So that's why we've seen that the naira to dollar is also worsening by the day, because it is not a policy question, it is a structural question.
You'd recall that the IMF had advised the federal government to close the gap between the exchange rate at the official market and the parallel market. They've said this over and over again, but the federal government keeps saying it's not time to do that, that they need to fix some things, put some structures in place. But do you see this as a way out? Do you see this as the only solution to dealing with this Forex issue?
It's going to be very difficult to close the window now, because the window exists because a structural leakage exists. What's the structural leakage? We are not earning enough in foreign exchange, and demand is constantly rising. So it means that when you have demand trying to, when supply is choked with high demand, number one, prices will go up, which is what we are seeing now. The exchange rate value has gone up. Prices will go up. Number two, people will look for other means source for the dollar. So even if prices have gone up, it's still not available through the formal routes, which is supposed to be the commercial banks in quote, or maybe some very registered and very registered and approved bureau exchange operators. So even within the formal route, you cannot still fund the demand. So people have to look for ways to fund that demand, and that's why you have not just a parallel market, but you now have multiple structures and multiple streams of parallel markets. I don't know if you get. So there are, even right now in Nigeria, a lot of people exchange dollar to naira based on private conversations. So you may have dollar, I have naira, and I don't need to go to a bridge to change or go to bank. I can just talk to you. Please, can you just give me a source? So we will agree the rates amongst ourselves. So there are no standard rates. In fact, there are no standard rates anywhere in Nigeria. It's based on intensity of that demand and probably use of the dollar as well.
All right, some big issues there that have to be resolved, especially if this Naira4Dollar scheme will work and the Forex issue in the country would be resolved. You'd recall that the CBN had also initiated another plan, the R200 scheme, which they, of course, put in place, saying that with every $1 remitted into the country, they would pay 65 Naira to just encourage the boost of the Forex. Thank you for joining us again, Gospel.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, so I was just talking about the other initiative, which was, of course, launched after the Naira4Dollar scheme, talking about the I&E Forex window to incentivize eligible corporates with 65 Naira per $1 remitted into the country. How impactful has that been?
Well, I've not followed that impact closely, but I see it as a revision of the policy we discussed earlier, where the central bank pays you an extra 5 Naira out there about for every dollar exchange fee. Yes. So it's just a review of previous reactionary policies. I understand the central bank is also pressured, but we also just need to do it right and get it right, regardless of what it will cost. So it's a very hard time for both the apex institution and also being the fact that there's a long history of fiscal indiscipline to deal. So you find the central bank trying to also do the fiscal policies work in terms of financing and all that. So just like the previous policy we discussed, it's not going to be sustainable because it doesn't approach structural issues. There may be some improvements in the short term, but that's because, again, it presents itself as a window opportunity. And once that window closes, in quotes, even though the policy is still active, it may not yet yield the required returns. So we need to get back to the bane. The being is
But
the
would you say
productive
the window
economy.
closed? Because the 5 naira is still being paid. The 65 naira was also, the 65 naira per $1 that comes into the country was also paid. The first tranche, I think, came in around March this year. And a lot of people cashed out from that. So it hasn't stopped. So I'm wondering what you mean by the
Yeah,
window
so it hasn't
closing.
stopped. It hasn't stopped, but the problem has worsened.
Mm.
So it's to tell you that it's just a window to cash out. It's perceived by the beneficiaries as a window to cash out, not as an opportunity to enjoy, not in a case where they can enjoy the stability of that policy in terms of affecting or impacting the naira and dollar exchange. So the policy is ineffective. The problems have worsened. All right, but people have cashed out from it. So it's still, it's still, it's has worsened the problem more than it has enabled. Let me tell you, the idea of cashing out is also the fact that people can hold more of these currencies either ways. You get what I'm trying to say, and probably resell. So you realize that there's a new economics around this policy that is being developed. So once you have a structural leakage with
every loophole will be taken advantage of. It's really a very, very hydra-headed situation that the federal government has to look at. But one would wonder, there are economists in the country, and the CBN governor is also someone who has some knowledge of this Forex market, and you'd expect that he would have looked at all of these issues and factored them in before coming up with any policy. Gospel, welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right, in wrapping up, you talked about one of the challenges of the NAIRA4DOLLAR scheme, saying that it wasn't well thought out and that the value chain is not organized. But the Apex Bank talked about people remitting the funds into the IMTO, and that looked like some form of organized system to get the funds in, isn't it?
The question is, what's the percentage? What's the size of the foreign diaspora remittances market? What's the actual size of it? I don't think anybody knows the actual size of it because there are many informal streams. So what's the actual size of it versus what is the size or what's the share of this IPO, whatever organization they have, to the actual size of that market? If it is more than 70 to 80%, then I will agree that the market has been structured. But I don't think that I think it's at a very bare minimum, and all that, because it's very clear the problem is still happening. And there are 3 to 4, 5, 6 ways of sending money back to Nigeria. They shouldn't be if the market is truly organized.
So what are your final thoughts? You think this scheme should be terminated?
I won't say the scheme should be terminated. I just think we need to do the right things first. Because another reason why it can't be terminated immediately, because a lot of funds, a lot of investment structural processes has gone in the way. So it may be a difficult decision to recall. But then again, you can begin to build the structures at the base level such that the leakages are closed and the policies have a stronger, basis to take off or, to find routes towards sustainability and improvement. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your contribution on the show this morning.
Thank you for having me as well.
Gospel Obele. Have a wonderful day.
And you too. Thank you.
All right, I've been speaking with Gospel Obele, Research and Development Economist, talking about the NAIRA4DOLLAR scheme of the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll delve into the global oil market. Please stay with us.